There is a very specific frustration standing in a grocery store, looking at a price tag, and realizing your bank account feels lighter than the official data suggests it should. This is the feeling of macroeconomic gaslighting, where the reports of a strong economy contradict the reality of your draining savings. This dissonance exists because the core tool we use to measure value is physically broken. Every calculation we make about our wealth relies on a unit of measurement that cannot hold its shape. In physics, the speed of light is a rigid constant you can use to build a spaceship. But in economics, the dollar is like a rubber tape measure. It expands and contracts based on monetary policy and consumer confidence. Trying to plan a financial future with a currency that stretches and shrinks is like trying to build a house with a ruler that changes length depending on the temperature outside. The studs end up different lengths, the window frames don't match the glass, and eventually the structure collapses. It is impossible to build a stable life using a ruler that is constantly fluctuating. To see why that ruler bends, we have to look at the economy as a physical system, governed by thermodynamics. We can map the standard equation of exchange, mv equals pq, directly onto a steam engine. M is the money supply, or the coal in the furnace. V is velocity, the heat of that money moving. P is the price level, the pressure. And Q is the quantity of real stuff we produce, the pistons doing actual work. When a central bank prints money, they are shoveling massive amounts of raw energy into the system. But if production is stalled, if the Q pistons are jammed, that energy has nowhere to go. According to the second law of thermodynamics, that energy must dissipate. It turns into heat. The velocity spikes as people rush to spend money before it loses value, and it turns into noise. Prices rise, venting like chaotic escaping steam. In this model, money functions as an information signal, telling you exactly what your labor is worth. But just as heat creates static in an engine, inflation creates static in that signal. When prices rise chaotically, the information degrades, a state physics calls information entropy. Inflation, then, is the physical consequence of injecting raw energy into a closed system. It is the thermal agitation of a signal that can no longer communicate value clearly. For 100 years, economists have tried to measure this static using the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. But the CPI relies on a statistical conflict called the index number problem. One method, the Laspeyres Index, looks backward. It tries to measure today's economy by pricing an obsolete basket of goods from 1990. It assumes your preferences are frozen in time, trying to find the modern value of cassette tapes and typewriters. The Pache Index does the opposite. It looks forward, trying to calculate what a modern VR headset or a streaming subscription would have cost in 1990, long before they were even invented. Fascinated, these two numbers almost never agree because they both rely on basic calculus that assumes the economy is flat. It's the same mistake as a Mercator map, which makes Greenland look larger than Africa because it's trying to force a curved planet onto a flat piece of paper. But the economy is curved. Innovation, changing tastes, and the way we swap expensive steak for cheaper chicken physically distort the market's geometry. Government metrics lie to us in the same way a flat map lies about the size of continents. They ignore the curvature of reality. Standard economics treats your financial life like a state function, as if only your starting and ending balance matter. But life is a path function. The specific route you take through the market dictates your actual costs. If two people have the same budget, but one buys their wine before a price spike and the other buys after, their experiences of inflation are completely different. A single national average describes neither of them. This is where gauge theory comes in. Physicists use it to navigate curved space, and we can use it to create an economic derivative. It replaces the rigid ruler that cannot bend with a flexible measure called the Divisia Index, which tracks the actual winding path of your spending. This math proves that there is no single inflation rate for the country. Your true cost of living is determined entirely by your unique, path-dependent journey through the market. To navigate this curved economy, we need more than monthly surveys. We can build a laser ring gyroscope for value, using real-time streams of transaction data to detect how our purchasing power is rotating. By splitting this data into backward and forward-looking beams, they fall out of sync, creating an interference pattern. That gap is the signal. Applying the Divisia Index resolves this into an accurate measure of value, respecting the market's curve. We have the math, and transaction data is already logged by every bank on Earth. But adopting a gauge that reveals true, path-dependent volatility would make current central bank policy impossible to execute. It trades predictable, broken averages used to steer the economy for a real-time readout of every passenger's unique struggle. Institutions rely on slow, static averages to maintain a sense of stability. A real-time economic speedometer would reveal a level of entropy most governments aren't prepared to manage. But we don't have to wait for institutions to change. The future lies in the democratization of measurement. Imagine a personal inflation dashboard connected to your own spending. Instead of a national average, it calculates your exact path-dependent velocity and entropy. This replaces the gaslighting of official data with hard personal hacks. By arming individuals with precise navigational tools, we empower people to navigate the economic storm by finally trusting their own instruments.